you very much for joining us at the Lozi work/shop. We're here to talk about manufacturing from waste material. We're having a look at the way that businesses can manufacture high-quality modern products, but using materials that would otherwise just go to waste. So how can we redefine waste and use it as material to make something new and different? So we have a panel of 4 businesses who are redefining that waste in that way this evening. We're going to hear from Rob from Toast Ale, which is a company brewing delicious craft beer using waste bread that would otherwise just go into bin and giving all of the profits to charity. We're going to hear from Adam from Smile Plastics, which is a material design and manufacturing company which is taking waste material again and making it into beautiful architectural panel products. We're going to hear from Soroush from Lozi, who is also our host this evening. This is his workshop, and he's going to be talking about how he has made a collection called the 999 collection, using waste material that is produced in the process of making the furniture that he makes here in this workshop. And finally, you may notice there's an empty stool still, but Helen from Davy J is going to be joining us. She's been exhibiting today at Fashion Week and is on her way over here, and we'll get here just in time to answer her questions. And she's working on creating beautiful active swimwear from 100% recycled material, including fishing nets and other marine waste. So some very, very different approaches to the same problem with really interesting outcomes. By the way, hi, I'm Rose. I'm editor-in-chief at Clippings, and we're all about helping interior designers find the most appropriate product for their project. How did the idea of brewing beer from surplus bread originally start?
Yeah, so the idea came about so it's like 2.5 years ago. So a friend of mine, Tristram, who's a food waste activist, campaigner, best-selling author, much better looking version of me. But he and I were having this chat 2.5 years ago where he'd just tried a beer that was brewed in Brussels, that was brewed with bread. The biggest food waste in the UK is bread, so it's the biggest food waste in the world. 44% of the bread that's baked in the UK is never consumed. It's absolutely bonkers. And so we just thought, well, let's put 2 and 2 together and create this really delicious solution and just prove that the alternative to food waste can be freaking tasty and bite-sized.
Can you talk us through the process of how you go about making beer from bread and how you develop the necessary techniques?
So, to make beer, anyone homebrew here? Anyone brew? Anyone know about beer industry? So to make beer, you basically, you kind of create a porridge. You mix hot water with malted barley or any cereal crop really, but malted barley is typically used. You get all the sugars and the carbohydrates out of the malted barley from the hot water, just leaching the carbohydrates out. You then leave the malted barley in that kind of big saucepan that you've used and just move the hot sugary liquid over to a second big saucepan where you're going to add hops, and then hops will give it flavour and aroma. You're then going to add yeast at a later stage, and then the yeast works its magic, because yeast is one of the most amazing magical things that exist in the world, and will turn all of those sugars into alcohols. And then you get lovely tasty beer. So our process is like exactly the same. It's just in that first big saucepan, we put 1/3 bread, 2/3 malted barley. Most of the surplus bread is coming at an industrial scale, where big sandwich manufacturers are just churning out bread that never even makes it to the shop floor. And so you kind of realise that all this fresh bread that just ends up going straight into landfill could be used for good use. So the bonkers thing as well is that it's cheaper for the sandwich companies to give us the bread free of charge, deliver it to the brewery, than it is to pay to dispose of it as commercial waste.
What is the scale of how much bread is actually wasted in the UK? Because you mentioned it's 40% of all food waste, but quantity-wise, how much?
Yeah. So it's 900,000 tonnes go to waste every single year. So it's just bonkers, like the scale of bread surplus. Over 1 billion tonnes of food goes to waste around the world every year. 1/3 of the food that we produce on this planet goes to waste. It is a massive issue, and the amount of forests that are cut down to produce food, whether it be livestock or cereal crops, that are then never consumed, the amount of aeroplanes that are transporting food around the world that's never consumed, the amount of ships, the amount of packaging, it's the biggest issue, I would say, that faces our planet is food waste. What we're really trying to do is point point a spotlight on this issue and then raise awareness in a quite fun way whilst tackling the issue and then pouring all of our profits into solutions as well at a more systemic level.
You received countless awards. You received, even just last month, a bronze from the International Beer Challenge Awards. You've been growing exponentially. You've actually only been going since 2016, which is amazing.
Yes, yeah.
And you've already expanded to the US, to South Africa. What's next?
Yeah, so just world domination. Bigger than Heineken. So we have like different prongs to our attack. So one, we're trying to grow our business, trying to really scale Toast. So yeah, we've launched our own business in New York. We've got demand from all over the world to take the product there. We don't do export, that's why we're partnering locally, because the nature of our mission, we don't want to be shipping beer all around the world. When you can brew it locally, tackle a local bread waste issue, raise awareness locally as well, and trying to really break into becoming a mainstream beer. And then also the open sourcing this recipe so that people can then tackle this at a local level. And then we're collaborating with breweries as well. A really exciting project that we're about to launch is called Batch, and like Batch by Toast. It's kind of the Tinder of baking and brewing, where we're looking to connect every bakery in the world with every brewery in the world. And see how we can then tackle this issue and give them all the know-how and knowledge, encourage them to partner up with a local food waste charity, but rather than us putting our toast like stamp on it in its sort of original form, it's kind of Batch by Toast.
Smile Plastic originated in the late 80s actually. There was a business set up by someone called Colin Williams, who was a chemical engineer, and it ran for about 10-15 years. One of the first examples of industrial upcycling, before the word upcycling, before the word sustainable design even actually. And it was used a lot in industrial design and engineering guidebooks for how people can approach design in a different way, how we can use recycled materials and communicate with them a different message. I had worked in the factory on a number of personal research projects and got together with the engineer that had originally created the factory, and the last 5 years we've been re-establishing the concept as a new, slightly different but a new version of what was going on in the 80s and 90s.
Similarly to Toast, actually, you manufacture using waste that you get from other companies and third parties. Where do you source the plastics that you use, and how much plastic is used to create all kinds?
A lot. It's a miserable task. I wish I'd chosen sourcing beautiful Diamante grapes or something. Rummaging around dustbin bags around the back of corner shops isn't particularly attractive. So the materials come from a combination of post-commercial, post-consumer, post-industrial waste, and depending on what we're doing, we collect plastic from all over the place, and we like look at this and we kind of get to know it a little bit in different ways, and then we start to work out how to convert it into one of the materials that we produce. And we have a range of classic materials which are based on different types of recycled plastic waste. But the recycled plastic comes from all over the place, and we have to make sure that we try and create similar batches. A batch will be between 5 and 6 tons of raw material, so every batch we have the new material, the next generation of material will have a slightly different look to it, so our materials evolve as the packaging industry changes. But yeah, so we're working with a collection of like big recycling companies, smaller recycling companies. The infrastructure for sorting, cleaning, washing, scrubbing plastic is relatively large. So we're working with companies to teach them how to clean and sort the waste so that we can then convert it into something that has a kind of a Smile Plastics quality.
And you mentioned collaborations, and that's what you do. You recently collaborated with Bloomberg, for example, to use their old computer keyboards. Is there kind of any limitations to what you can create, and what would be your dream project?
There's definitely no limitations, but things take longer the more complicated they are. So something like the Bloomberg project, and they did a lot of manual labour. It was very, very painstaking, cleaning, sorting and managing the waste in order for it to be converted. So things can take a long time, but the sort of the outcome is so personal and special that it can't really ever become waste after that. We're not necessarily about mass manufacturing stuff. Our focus really is on trying to make really high quality, socially engaging materials that enable people to walk into a space and think, I want to change the world.
What Lozi is working on is quite distinct from the first two panels that we've heard from, in that you're using waste from your own production process and seeing how you can keep that within the cycle and create a collection of products with your own sawdust. And you launched the collection last November, and it's called the Learn Engineering Collection. What inspired you to start using your own waste in the business, and how did that first collection come about?
There were like a few inspirations behind that idea. The first thing was, it's a very hot topic now, global warming, saving the planet, and we thought as a very small business, how can we contribute to this? I had a visit with my wife actually last year. It was a bit of a manic situation. We went to Tiger shop trying to find some Christmas presents. It was my first time being at Tiger, and I was amazed by looking at all these products. I want to use this model at Lozi so we can make something which is fun, it's beautifully designed, and it's not necessarily it's going to disappear or break maybe the following year. The main material we use is plywood. We are really trying to be efficient to make the most of it, for all of our products. But what you do, you end up with some sort of sawdust and offcuts. So the main idea was to create a collection just based on this. But the main thing was walking around the workshop and trying not to let any waste or rubbish going from that door outside, and we can keep it in a closed loop and we keep using it and keep using it.
And during your MSc, you wrote your dissertation on fashion manufacturing processes. How have you incorporated those ideas into the business that you're building as Lozi? And how have they inspired you to work with waste?
I focused on very, very specific thing. It's a Japanese term called muda. I don't know if anyone's familiar with it. It's M-U-D-A. I really recommend everyone just to look up and see what it is. And it's mainly been used in car factories in Japan, and that's how they're very successful, basically. And waste as a material is only one aspect of it. It talks about how much, for example, time you can waste, or by moving around, or just do nothing. A lot of these things can affect your production. So it's all about being super efficient. I really focus on that side a lot in the company first, and then I thought, okay, let's leave the actual waste as our sawdust or offcuts for later. Maybe it's the story of us here. It's a very small workshop. It's only 3-4 of us, but every week we have projects, a lot of projects, going out of this and doing installation. So people think we're actually a very big company, but we are not. We don't have to be.
That process is about casting people sawdust to develop into products. How does that process work and what possibilities do you see?
We are just at the beginning of it, but you guys mastered that technique. But for us, it's the main thing is the sawdust. A lot of people did some different experiments, from turning it to a wood log. You can just burn it, but we can't because it's plywood and it has some chemicals and glues inside. So we can't burn it. That's not a solution, and also it's not good for the environment anyway. So we tried to use it in different places. We thought maybe we can mix it with glue, with resin, bioresins, and try to find a solution to maybe cast it. But because the volume is huge, we can't just think about, maybe we can make coasters, little things. That's the first thing comes to your head. But the volume is a lot. Every 2 months, 3 months, we have huge bags, and we look at them, it goes out somewhere that we don't know. So we are trying to reproduce it. In fact, turn it back to a plywood sheet made out of sawdust. Then we can constantly cut it, and whatever sawdust we reproduce it. The way I see it, each sheet of plywood, it's cost maybe a few £1,000, because if you think about how they made it in the first place, all those farmers, and it's big industrial kind of scale, but that tree took like 25, 30 years and consumed air, soil, water, everything. It's actually a lot of pressure on us to do something great with it, which can last for a long time. It's beautiful, it's functional, and then whatever is left, in fact, we can use it again. So that was the... And going back to the custom, sorry for the story.
Super exciting. And I love the idea that in this workshop, every single scrap of material is precious because of the journey that it's been to get here. It's really interesting. So getting a bit more context on Davy J swimwear, you started your career actually as an economist, actually in the circular economy. What inspired you from that to start Davy J, and how did that early experience shape the brand?
Yeah. I actually only started Davy J a year ago, so it doesn't even seem that long ago that was sort of my old life. And on paper it seems completely balmy. I've gone from being a development economist to being a swimwear designer. Which just makes absolutely no sense, but for those people that know me, there's a real logic to that journey. I've always been really interested in circular design, circular economics. Spent a lot of my own time looking into materials, just as an interest. I always loved what products were made out of, the story behind them. And I've always felt there was a gap in the swimwear market, the women's swimwear market specifically, for something that bridged the gap between performance wear, so Speedos and the like, and actually fashionable beachwear. So it was sort of two tangents running at the same time. I thought there was a gap in the swimwear market. I never thought I would be the one to do it. And then at the same time, meeting and being in touch with Aquafil, which is the partners that collect waste fishing nets, collect waste nylon, fishing nets, carpet offcuts, plastic scraps that they can then regenerate back into a raw nylon yarn.
Plastic pollution, you're doing this at a good moment because plastic pollution is a really hot topic, particularly since we had Blue Planet 2 come out. Like, it's something that's really, it's in the spotlight right now. How do you actually go about transforming this ghost fishing net into swimwear?
Yeah, so I have a partnership with Aquafil, which is the people that collect and regenerate the waste. What they actually do is they have partnerships with fishing communities all over the world, as well as divers that go out and pick up ghost fishing nets. They also work with carpet manufacturers to collect all of the fluff that comes off the carpets when they manufacture them. The process is quite technical. It's they take the waste nylon and they turn it right back into its raw polymer form, and then they remake nylon thread. So the nylon thread itself looks and feels just like virgin nylon. You know, you wouldn't notice by looking at our swimwear. It doesn't look at all different to what a normal swimwear material would look like. But it's 100% made from waste. So yeah, so I have a partnership with Aquafil to do that.
And you talk about having an end-of-life scheme for the Davy J swimsuits. Can you tell us a little bit about what that means?
Yeah, well, circular economy, you know, it's not just about the supply chain. It sort of starts right at the start when, you know, designing products to last. So our swimsuits are built to last because, you know, so many will only last one holiday. They're built to last, they're designed to last. We use a sustainable supply chain, but then also, you know, what happens to the product at the end of its life? This is, you know, such a big issue, and I've always just felt a responsibility. If we create something, then we're responsible for what happens to it. So we have an end-of-life scheme at Davy J that we say, whenever your swimsuit does eventually reach the end of its life, send it back to us. You know, we're responsible for those materials.
And off the back of all this, you won the Women of the Future Entrepreneur Award in 2017. What is next, and how would you like to see your business develop?
Oh, wow, you need to ask me in a few days' time, because this last week has been absolutely mad. You realise we've got a long way to go in the sustainable sphere. So this year, London Fashion Week had a hashtag positive fashion. And part of that was to do with the models they're using and the image they're giving, but also part of it was really looking at the sustainability side of the fashion industry, which we all know is a complete nightmare. But my experience was people were still very shocked. I think when you work in this field, we all think this has sort of become a bit normal now, but it's really not, and people really don't understand it. There's a long way to go in that field.
That's maybe an interesting point to open up actually to the panel. And And as kind of, to what extent do you think that the product needs to be self-evident about the fact that it is from waste material? To what extent do you think it's important that the product explains itself in that way, or maybe to a point where maybe it's not necessarily anymore? And how does it help with the story of the product?
Our experience this week was, it's a trade event on Fashion Week, so it was buyers coming around really, and they are not ready yet. It's quite interesting. They don't feel like their consumers are quite ready to take a complicated message. They're really interested in sustainability, they're really interested in the mark and sort of the tag you can put on it, but they're very conscious of how to get the story across, particularly online.
So we, I think, your first question as well, so we have found, so our, I guess, sort of trade buyers are finding our story really resonates with consumers. So I would say to kind of give you, like, as an sort of pushback, like using examples obviously that are out there where consumers are really ready. And so I would kind of challenge some of your retail buyers. We find that when we go into a pub, our story absolutely resonates with a barman or a barwoman. You have to remember all the hops that are in it and all these other details that they're used to having to answer this as a story. And I just think the same with like, what all of us are doing. It's like consumers really love a story and a message, and the evidence is showing now that nearly 50% of consumers are interested in products that have personality, authenticity or purpose, and if you have all three, you're in an absolute sweet spot. So 100% challenge we have with ourselves is like, I mean, is it all just one big oxymoron, this concept of, you know, sustainable retail consumption? Because ultimately, yeah, it's a real challenge. Whilst beer is being consumed, much better to make a beer that's going to be better for the planet and making use of the surplus bread. We would much rather surplus bread didn't exist in the first instance. It's about all of us probably lobbying for the supply that we receive to not be there in the first instance. I suspect all of us have that as our like passion that got us into this world in the first place. We definitely don't exist, I guess, like for the sake of it. For us in general to then try and work out how we can be as environmentally positive as possible. So drinking beer on tap in a keg is much better than bottle. We also look at kind of bottle versus can.
I mean, with the plastics economy being in the hot topic, I think there might be a reduction in usage, but it's not. We're ultimately not going to stop consuming, and it's a horrible situation, but the scale of human civilization needs to have industrial food in some way just to keep it propped up. Along with food production comes all the packaging, all of the apparel, which links it to other waste streams, which is evident in the supermarket. And I don't think there has to be a really major change in the way that society consumes in order for there not to be a waste issue. And I don't think we're going to see it for a very long period of time. I think it's with us for a very long period of time. I think we can tackle it in clever ways, in creative ways, and that's what Smart Plastics is trying to do, and other companies are doing as well. But ultimately it's there, and I think it's about engaging with it and not looking at it as a terrifying thing. But
what advice could you give for businesses who want you to reassess that own relationship with waste?
an internal audit of what you do as a business, and then trying to identify where there might be waste. It's just about identifying where the things come to you and things go out of you, like what's happening here with the wood waste. Wood is coming in and wood's going out.
It seems that a lot of these problems are created by like bigger kind of companies, and then now you guys, that you have to go and say, okay, this is a problem, and then we have to turn it into something. We are very small, but I'm sure if we've come up with a solution, we can maybe offer it to the other kind of companies similar to us, saying, let's share it. Imagine if at the end of their recycling, we had major companies, they were standing and pick up their own bottles or bread, everything, recycling with it, maybe we were a bit safer.
First and foremost, our swimmer's great swimmer. That's what we kind of start with. It's not, you don't buy it just because of what it's made of. You buy it because it's great swimwear. So we're designing a high quality luxury product. And you know, that's probably one of the most important parts in the education process right now, is that people do think, when they think waste, they think rubbish. Right? All of us probably here are in the process of teaching people that, you know, not to judge, and actually that waste can be beautiful, that both from a business and a consumer perspective. I think that's kind of what the line we're pushing at the moment, and we're all sort of examples trying to make people understand and have a different perspective on what waste can look and feel and perform. Like, it doesn't have to be a secondary product.
You've already said that recreating products out of waste is more expensive than doing it like the new things. So do you think that people's perceptions of how much things cost needs to change, or do you think the cost of recreating stuff out of waste needs to come down?
Yeah, both. I mean, I would love there to come a time when it is, you know, the recycled alternative, which has exactly the same properties, is cheaper than the virgin alternative, because it's a no-brainer, then everyone will switch. I do think we argue two lines, because we also create a luxury product. You know, we build to last, we manufacture in the UK. All of our pieces are double-lined, they've got a higher lasting content, so they last a lot longer than a normal swimsuit. So you've also got that argument as well. You're trying to encourage a consumer to buy something longer term. It's not fast fashion. We've become, certainly over the last 5 years, so used to this churning out of cheap clothing that our idea of pricing has just dropped, particularly in the apparel industry. So it's kind of both. It's encouraging people to look at the value of the story behind the product, so what it's made of, but also the value of the length of the life of the product. And this is going to last 3, 4, 5 times as long as one of your other swimsuits. So are you willing to pay 3, 4, 5 times as much? The answer is usually no, but are people willing to pay at least a small premium if they can understand that it lasts longer? I mean,
it's a lot of effort the way you said it. You collect it and you go and pick it up. All of that, you know, adds to the cost. I really wish, for example, exactly what you said, the raw material, the waste material, it was cheaper producing it. So, for example, we can come to you and use more of it. But again, it's difficult to tell this story to clients, saying you have to pay more, and say it's a beautiful recycled plastic, and say it's a recycled plastic, so it should be very cheap. They said no, it's not. This is the story. This is how they make it. And then it's all about like educating people as well. And maybe this is maybe one of the reasons we're all here. We're just expanding it, that we go towards being less consumption, and then buying quality products. Just bringing back the quality to items, I think, is the key thing.
Are any of your offcuts the size of a tap handle?
Oh, yeah.
Are they like any of your wooden offcuts about that big?
Yeah.
Tap handles. That's really sweet.
Okay, well, you guys can go rummage in there.